From chicken tenders to tampons, the price hikes that are irking most Americans. We're going to talk about that on the show next. Welcome to the Matt Logan Show. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, your comment, question, suggestion might get on the next episode of Ask Matt Anything. That email is askmatt@mattloganspeaks.com. We also appreciate you hammering out a share, hammering out a like, commenting on this video or on this audio, and giving us 5 stars, 4 stars. Any stars are fine with us. Did you realize that from chicken tenders to tampons was a real thing irking Americans?
I wouldn't have picked those two objects, but
grocery store is really the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about. Grocery crisis. In fact, the reality for most Americans on groceries, we looked at in the past, in months ago in the spring, some of the different. I don't want to say it and it sounds like a conspiracy, but there's all these food plants burning down, and they've never seen anything burn down in history this often, and blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to say it's a conspiracy, but it seems interesting. With that, the supply and demand increases the price.
Right. Trucking.
You have gas prices increasing the price because of trucking and flying things around. And this is really hurting the middle and lower class families. And I read this thing, and I really wish I would have been able to find it, and I thought I had saved it, but I read this thing on like 3 generations of families and how it affected them. One was retired, the first generation retired, and how it kind of affected their life. And I'm going off of memory a little bit, but they weren't able to buy their, say, Florida house. It wasn't Florida, but it was. I think it was Texas, honestly. But they weren't able to do that because of inflation prices, and specifically their food had almost tripled in the area that they live in. And so obviously when you're on a fixed income and you're living off of essentially your retirement and stocks and all those other things that go along with it, that's very significant.
Absolutely.
And so then they looked at the next generation and, how, they weren't going to be able to remodel their house and, some of that kind of thing that they wanted to do because now their kids are grown and they have to look towards retirement and some of those things. So they weren't able to do that because of all the prices, and in groceries were about double for that particular part of the family. But then, like in my situation, how I look at it with my kids, I'm thankful that one of them bought a house before all this stuff came into play. Mm-hmm. But the other 2 aren't, they're not even going to consider it right now. For a starter home, it's significantly higher than it was 3 and 4 years ago. 2 years ago, right? But certainly significantly from that perspective, Yeah. And so it was very interesting how all those things affected these 3 generations, and it just got me thinking that there's a lot of silent killers out there, and I mean literally, this is driving people to suicide. And you read articles about that, like they had to start putting groceries in some of these things on credit cards, and they got in all this debt, and they felt that the only way out of it was by ending their life. And I mean, that's sad, man. It's a crisis. 18 extra large eggs used to be $3.18, and that was after COVID stuff. This was a year ago. Mm-hmm. Now double at $5.12, almost double in 1 year.
And that's one thing.
One thing. So what are some solutions? What do you think?
Well, if your city allows it, get some chickens.
I got chickens. They're not laying eggs yet. Still a little young.
Careful, because you'll get a lot.
I know. It's great. I'm going to sell them to you.
we'll take them. I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's not. It affects the upper middle class and the upper classes, but it really hurts the fixed income and the lower class people because they just don't have the spare money.
I want to interrupt you there. How does it affect them? The first thing that pops into my mind of how it affects them is, they don't go golfing as often. They don't take as many vacations.
The upper.
Yeah,
they're not spending
right?
their money in the economy. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, I'm being a little facetious.
It affects them, just not negatively like
right.
a lower class family. But it's, when a family has to decide, do they feed their kids or keep the power on or run the air. I read several articles and I can't run the air conditioner because I need to feed my children.
Yes.
In a big city, in an apartment building, that's pretty drastic.
Yes.
It's scary. And that, again, some of the senior citizens in some of these bigger cities, they don't have money to keep their air conditioner on, or they're choosing between their medications or food. And yes, it's absolutely going to kill people, not just from suicides, but other things too. So, the average person, they can absorb it. But, and you're seeing it in the food shelves too. The food shelves aren't near as stocked as they used to be. And, families aren't able to get the meats that they want because the food shelves can't buy it. Or the families can't buy it.
Well, the food shelves can't buy it because they're not getting as many donations in money and in food, of course.
And the donations don't go near as far.
Right.
So a family having meat twice a week might be twice a month.
Right.
And that's going to affect those kids. It's going to affect that family for a long time.
Yeah.
That lack of protein.
So give. That's a solution.
Help the people that are less fortunate.
Yeah.
It'll come around.
Yeah, absolutely it will. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I just know that I know it's really hard because it hits really close to home because there's people I know that are like, this is really, our freezers are empty now. We can't restock them. We're going to the grocery store and we're buying more ramen than we ever bought in our life, and even that's more expensive than it used to be, and all these things, and it's just it's really sad, and it's really something that we need to help each other out on. But we also, in my opinion, need to really get involved politically and locally for sure, because that affects everybody, and we're seeing how it affects people right now. This is a lockdown issue too, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's not just exclusive to the grocery store. I mean, right now there's a huge drought, so the cattle farmers are selling their cattle off for pennies on the dollar. So the markets are getting flooded by meat right now, but they're selling the cows that haven't had calves yet. So the next generation of beef isn't going to be there. So the beef prices might be down now. Everything else is through the roof, but that's probably going to be fourfold in 18 months when they don't have any cattle to
and like I say all the time, look at the whole picture. This is definitely something that's a crisis for a lot of families because the whole picture is involved, Yeah. So, I guess, I don't know. I think that's about all I have on this one, Craig. This is just something I wanted to bring up a little bit. I think it's important that people are aware of it and think about it from maybe different angles. I talk about that a lot. Look at it from different angles and help each other out. So, questions, comments, suggestions, like I mentioned, send me an email, AskMatt@mattloganspeaks.com. We will see you soon.